I am Chelsea Barrett, 28, and literally last weekend, my role as the family's golden heirloom. Yeah, it totally backfired. The prestigious Barrett Furniture legacy I'd fought my whole life to quietly sidestep blew up spectacularly at our annual charity gala. My dad straight up demanded I quit what he called my filthy tattoo business and return to save our sinking family name. When I clapped back, refusing to abandon the career I loved for the life I loathed, the room went dead silent. "You just ruined us," my father yelled, his voice shaking, fists clenched tight by his sides. Every socialite, every friend of the family, every business associate stared at me like I'd just set fire to centuries of tradition. My mother wouldn't even meet my eyes, and my older brother Finn, always smug, smirked from across the banquet table. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me. It lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Before I spill it all, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stay with me for the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost funny. They never dreamed what I'd become once I broke their mold. Growing up, Barrett meant two things: tradition and obedience. Our name had graced elegant oak dressers and finely polished tables for nearly a century. My great-grandfather carved that business out of literal sawdust, passing it through generations, each one more rigid and snobbish than the last. By the time it reached my father, Barrett Furniture stood for elegance, sophistication, and above all, image. Appearances mattered far more than happiness. I wasn't like them. Even as a kid, instead of playing tea party in designer dresses or rearranging furniture catalogs like my perfect cousin Priscilla, I drew dragons on my bedroom walls and tattooed imaginary designs on my dolls. Dad tried to redirect me, calling my passion cute but misguided. Mom just sighed, disappointed her daughter didn't crave the spotlight at society teas and cocktail parties. At 18, I'd made my first decision that shook the Barrett household. Instead of going to the business school Dad handpicked, I enrolled in art classes and apprenticed at a tiny tattoo parlor downtown. Dad called it a hobby, figuring I'd tire quickly. But I thrived. Tattooing wasn't just art, it was transformation, healing, a way to tell the stories hidden beneath people's skin. Then came the ultimatum: return home and run Barrett Furniture or lose everything. Money, support, family, they made sure I knew the stakes. I chose ink. So, just shy of 22, they disinherited me. Overnight, I lost the family credit cards, my trust fund, even my apartment. With $50 in my pocket and nowhere to go, I couch-surfed, sketching tattoos by flashlight, scraping by on sheer stubbornness. They bet I'd fold, crawl back begging forgiveness. Instead, I inked my defiance permanently onto my skin, literally. A phoenix across my shoulder blades, wings spread wide, ready to rise. I tattooed others with their stories of pain, triumph, and rebirth, building a family that wasn't blood, but something deeper. My business grew, my heart healed, my scars became strengths. Yet even now, after all these years and success, stepping into that gala reminded me how easily my family could still cut me down. But this time, something shifted inside me. This time, I was ready not just to survive their blows, but to fight back. Because Barrett Furniture wasn't just in trouble, it was drowning. Finn's mismanagement was dragging the legacy down, and Dad's pride was about to meet its greatest challenge. The irony tasted sweet. They disowned the daughter who could have saved them all along. But redemption wouldn't come without a price. And this time, the cost would be set by me. Being the overlooked Barrett kid wasn't something I stumbled into by accident. It was practically my birthright. From the moment I was old enough to realize my crayons were tools of expression, not decoration for my parents' pristine white walls, I sensed I was the puzzle piece my family wished they could reshape. Finn, on the other hand, was everything they ever wanted. Tall, polished, effortlessly charming, my brother never missed a beat. He was the chosen one, their golden ticket. Every trophy, every B-average report card, every predictable milestone was celebrated like he'd invented fire. Meanwhile, I could have won a Nobel Prize, and my father would have complained I wasn't dressed properly for the acceptance ceremony. Flashback to Finn's high school graduation. My parents hosted a lavish backyard celebration, the kind of party with caterers, string quartets, and garden lights that cost more than a decent used car. Finn stood beaming next to Dad, his perfect grin frozen for the family photographer. My mom, elegant and composed, dabbed away tears. My Aunt Delia kept gushing about Finn's extraordinary talent. Never mind his greatest achievement was captain of the golf team. And me? I'd just won first prize in a statewide art competition, but my pastel portrait hung forgotten in a corner, barely noticeable beside Finn's enormous banner. "Chelsea, sweetie, could you just step aside for 1 second?" Mom waved me out of frame, barely glancing my way as I shuffled awkwardly from the photo lineup. Invisible. That was my default mode. The one Barrett who didn't quite match, the off-key note in their perfect symphony. By the time I turned 21, Finn was already deeply embedded in Barrett Furniture, groomed for succession. Dad had proudly named him Junior VP, despite Finn barely managing to keep track of his own schedule, much less the family empire. Meanwhile, my designs were beginning to turn heads downtown. My tattoo station might have been cramped, tucked away in the back of a sketchy building that smelled of burnt coffee and cigarette smoke, but my art was getting attention. I'd even inked a rising rock star's sleeve, and local magazines started buzzing about the new tattoo talent. The Barretts, however, weren't impressed. The only ink they valued was the kind used to sign multi-million-dollar contracts. My passion, my ambition, none of it registered in their perfectly manicured world. The year my first shop officially opened, I invited the family, hoping foolishly they'd finally see me for who I was. Dad strolled in late, nose wrinkled, as if he'd accidentally stumbled into a crime scene, rather than a boutique tattoo parlor. Mom hovered nervously, clutching her designer handbag like a shield against the sketchiness of the neighborhood. Finn didn't bother showing up at all. He texted some lame excuse about a scheduling. "So, this is your business?" Dad said, the words sliding out coated with disdain. He eyed the designs on the wall, portraits of dragons and roses, symbols of transformation and rebirth, everything I'd poured my soul into. "Yeah," I said cautiously, feeling smaller with every second. "This is me, my art." He cleared his throat dismissively. "Chelsea, this hobby, it can't sustain you. Come home, we'll figure something out at the company, receptionist maybe." My blood ran cold. He wasn't offering help. He was dismissing my identity, my entire life's work, as frivolous, disposable, invisible once again. That night, alone, I cried until my chest ached. Then I sketched until dawn, determined. My tears stained the paper, but beneath the blurred lines emerged a phoenix, wings unfurled, head raised proudly. I tattooed it onto my shoulder the next day, the needle carving determination deeper than ink. My family didn't understand me, didn't see me, but that phoenix was proof I could rise from their shadows. Finn could keep his trophies and titles, the Barretts could keep their money and empty prestige. My inheritance was my strength, my art, my own unapologetic truth. Now, years later, as my family's empire teetered on ruin, I realized something powerful. They'd never truly seen me, but soon enough they'd have no choice but to recognize exactly who I'd become. Every great success has an aha moment, a turning point so subtle yet powerful that you don't notice until you're looking back. For me, that moment arrived late, one humid Friday evening, when I was 25, sweat beating down my neck as the air conditioner sputtered out its last gasp in my tiny studio. The shop was barely breaking even. Between rent, supplies, and a stubborn landlord named Peggy, who'd sooner let the place flood than fix a leak, I barely had enough left over each month for groceries. Still, my regulars came faithfully, mostly college students and young professionals, seeking something meaningful, etched onto their skin. I loved the work deeply, but bills piled up, and doubt whispered louder each day. That particular evening, I was preparing to close early. The heat was brutal, and the fluorescent lights buzzed above my head, casting a harsh glow on the faded linoleum floor. I'd just finished sanitizing my equipment when the bell above the door chimed. In walked a nervous young woman, barely 20, clutching a folded scrap of paper like it was made of gold. "Are you Chelsea?" she asked timidly, eyes wide, voice barely above a whisper. I smiled gently, nodding. "That's me. What can I do for you?" She hesitated, chewing her lip nervously, unfolding the paper with shaking fingers. Her eyes met mine, suddenly filling with tears. "My sister, she passed away last month. I need to remember her somehow." Something in my chest tightened immediately. Moments like these were the heart of my art, the raw, beautiful honesty of someone entrusting me with their pain, their memory. I guided her gently to the worn leather chair, waiting patiently as she described her sister, brave, spirited, a fighter who loved the sea. I sketched while she spoke, feeling her sister's story seep into my fingertips until the image emerged. An ocean wave, delicate yet fierce, a symbol of eternal strength. She watched silently as I worked, tears streaming down her cheeks, but when I finally showed her the design, she gasped softly, a smile breaking through her sadness. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Thank you." The tattoo took hours, delicate lines etched with love, grief, and hope. By the time I finished, it was past midnight, yet neither of us noticed. When she left, she hugged me tightly, promising she'd tell everyone who'd listen about her experience, and she did. Within days, my phone buzzed non-stop with inquiries. Social media lit up with photos of the Youve tattoo, each post tagged Chelsea Inc. Suddenly, it felt like everyone wanted their story inked onto their skin by the artist who'd captured pain and healing in one perfect design. My tiny shop, once quiet and overlooked, started buzzing with new energy. Clients came from miles away, lining up around the block for a Chelsea original. Magazines wrote about the tattooist turning pain into powerful art. I hired assistants, remodeled, and soon enough moved into a spacious storefront downtown. Barrett Tattoo Studio became a city landmark, an oasis where scars transformed into strength. Yet, despite my growing success, I stayed quiet. My parents still assumed I was barely scraping by, another starving artist destined for failure. Finn still scoffed, dismissing my career as cute rebellion, unaware of the empire I'd secretly built. I didn't correct them. Why bother? They'd spent decades dismissing me, shaping their narrative of failure around my choices. Now, as I watched customers share their deeply personal stories through my art, my family's opinions faded into insignificance. The irony was sweet. They'd disinherited the daughter who quietly became everything they thought she couldn't. Successful, respected, genuinely happy. My tattoos weren't just ink. They were lifelines, bonds forged through vulnerability, courage, and trust. So yes, that sweltering night with a grieving young woman changed everything. But the true shift happened within me, a realization deeper than money or fame. I wasn't just proving them wrong, I was finally profoundly proving myself right. And soon enough, everyone, including the Barretts, would know it. Fast forward to now, just yesterday evening, when the biggest opportunity of my life arrived quietly in an email notification. Sitting cross-legged on my couch in sweatpants, half-eaten Thai takeout balanced precariously on my knee, I stared at my laptop in disbelief. It was official. Ink Nation, a leading nationwide lifestyle brand, had chosen Barrett Tattoo Studio as their next major collaboration. My heart hammered as I reread the words, the confirmation of a deal worth more than I'd made in the last 3 years combined. I'd poured my soul into building my studio, but even I never expected a partnership of this magnitude. This wasn't just validation, it was vindication. Yet my excitement quickly soured as my eyes fell on the calendar. The timing couldn't have been more twisted. Tomorrow night was my family's annual formal dinner. Every year, the Barretts gathered at my parents' sprawling estate, draped in luxury and superficial charm, to showcase their supposed perfection to their social circle. Every year, I showed up, holding tight to whatever scraps of dignity I had left, bracing myself for a barrage of polite condescension masked as concern. Now, on the eve of the greatest milestone of my career, the idea of enduring another evening of subtle digs, judgmental glances, and fake smiles made my stomach turn. But I couldn't skip it. Mom's polite yet pointed voicemail had made that clear earlier. "Chelsea, darling, please be sure to come. It means a great deal to your father." Translation: show up or face even worse consequences. So, reluctantly, I confirmed my attendance, preparing to walk straight into the lion's den. The following afternoon, anxiety simmered beneath my calm facade as I dressed carefully, selecting a long-sleeved black dress that covered my tattoos. Not out of shame, but because I'd rather hide my success than risk my family's ridicule twisting it into failure. As I slipped on my heels, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Gone was the timid girl who once cried after every family gathering. Instead, a strong, determined woman stared back, her gaze clear, shoulders straight. "You got this," I whispered to my reflection, squaring my shoulders. Pulling up the long driveway felt like entering enemy territory. The Barrett mansion loomed ahead, a monument to everything I'd walked away from. luxury masking emptiness. My parents waited on the marble steps, greeting guests with practiced grace. Finn stood near the doorway, smiling and shaking hands like a seasoned politician. His crisp suit and polished shoes exuded authority, a stark contrast to my quiet defiance. "Chelsea," my mother greeted coolly, air-kissing my cheek, her eyes subtly scanning my appearance for flaws. "Glad you could finally make it." "Good evening, Mother," I replied calmly, resisting the urge to roll my eyes. My father offered a stiff nod, expression unreadable. "I assume you're still dabbling in that tattoo thing?" "It's not a dabble, Dad," I replied, keeping my voice steady, professional. "It's my career," he scoffed lightly, turning his attention away. "We'll see." Inside, crystal chandeliers glittered overhead as guests mingled, sipping champagne and exchanging pleasantries. I stayed near the edges, bracing myself for the inevitable questioning about my little hobby, the subtly condescending remarks masked as polite conversation. An older gentleman approached, squinting at me through thick glasses. "Ah, the Barrett daughter? Still drawing things on people?" His tone was friendly enough, but the disdain beneath it cut sharply. "Yes," I answered simply, holding his gaze. "Still creating art." "Such a shame," he sighed theatrically. "Your father's empire could use your help now more than ever, I hear." I froze, sensing something beneath his words. My gaze darted across the room, catching glimpses of hushed conversations, worried expressions exchanged between guests. Something was off tonight. Tension crackled beneath the polite facade. Then, across the room, my father and Finn locked in quiet, urgent conversation, both of their faces pale, strained. Finn gestured wildly, Dad's expression growing darker by the second. A chill ran through me. Whatever was happening, this wasn't just another awkward Barrett family dinner. Something far worse was brewing beneath the polished surface, something that had the potential to reshape my family forever. And somehow, instinctively, I knew, whatever storm was coming, I'd be at its very center. Dinner was announced, and I reluctantly took my seat at the long, ornate dining table, the epicenter of Barrett prestige. Fine china gleamed beneath the chandelier's soft glow, reflecting a carefully curated elegance that felt suffocating. As I unfolded my napkin, I caught Finn's eyes, full of barely contained smugness, across the table. He raised an eyebrow, silently mocking my presence. I forced myself to stay composed. Conversation began smoothly, guests praising Dad's impeccable taste and Mom's flawless hosting. But inevitably, as always, the spotlight swung toward me. Mr. Prescott, Dad's longtime business associate, turned with manufactured curiosity. "So Chelsea, your father tells me you're still in the tattoo business?" His voice lingered over the word tattoo as if it tasted sour. I met his eyes evenly. "I am, it's thriving." He chuckled patronizingly, lifting his wine glass. "I suppose every family needs a black sheep." Polite laughter rippled around the table, stinging like tiny cuts. My mother's forced smile strained at the edges. Dad cleared his throat, irritation flickering in his gaze. "She's determined to follow her own path, despite our best efforts," he offered dryly. "We'd hoped it was a passing phase, but Chelsea is stubbornly independent. Translation, she's a disappointment." Finn seized his moment, leaning forward with theatrical sympathy. "Come on, Dad, maybe we should let Chelsea ink the next Barrett Furniture collection. Skulls and flames might spice things up." Laughter erupted again, sharper now, less polite. Heat flooded my cheeks, anger simmering beneath my careful mask of composure. My fingers curled tightly beneath the tablecloth, nails biting into my palms. I forced a steady breath, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me crack. "Actually, Finn, tattoos are deeply personal, transformative art. Not that you'd know much about genuine creativity." Silence slammed down on the table, immediate and electric. Finn's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed dangerously. My mother's breath hitched audibly. Dad leaned forward slightly, expression darkening further. "Creativity?" Finn sneered, breaking the silence. "Chelsea, slapping tacky designs on people desperate for attention isn't art, it's exploitation." My patience frayed, dangerously thin. Every insult, every belittling comment I'd endured tonight and over the years, fueled the fire inside me. "You wouldn't recognize art if it walked in and introduced itself, Finn," I shot back coolly, keeping my voice controlled but firm. "And at least my clients come to me willingly. I don't have to exploit a family legacy to hide my lack of talent." Finn's face flushed crimson, his confidence briefly faltering. Guests shifted uncomfortably, the tension thick enough to suffocate. Enough, my father snapped sharply. He glared down the length of the table at me, fury radiating from every rigid muscle. Chelsea, I will not have you disrespecting this family or our business at my own table. His words sliced deep, reopening old wounds. My throat tightened, but I held his gaze, refusing to shrink. Then maybe this isn't the place for me, I replied steadily, masking my hurt with defiance. Dad's eyes narrowed. Perhaps you're right. Clearly you have no respect for the Barrett name, so allow me to make things perfectly clear. You're done embarrassing us. My breath froze in my chest, heartbeat pounding painfully loud in my ears. The entire table was silent, eyes fixed, waiting for the executioner's blow. You've made your choice, he continued coldly, voice devoid of warmth. From this moment forward, you are officially disowned. There will be no inheritance, no further support. You've burned every bridge with your stubbornness. Humiliation scorched my cheeks, tears threatening to betray me. Yet beneath it all, a strange sense of relief blossomed, a painful, liberating clarity. I'd been rejected my entire life, quietly and subtly. Now at last their disdain was public and final. I slowly stood from the table, chair scraping loudly against polished wood. All eyes watched silently, every guest riveted by the spectacle of a Barrett family implosion. Fine, I replied evenly, forcing my voice to remain steady, despite the ache deep inside. If that's your choice, Dad, I accept it. But remember this moment clearly, because someday, you might regret throwing away the one person who could have truly saved this family. And as I turned toward the door, spine straight and head held high, something extraordinary happened. My phone vibrated insistently in my clutch, a call interrupting the stunned silence of the room. As I pulled it out, glancing briefly at the glowing screen, my breath caught sharply in my throat. Ink Nation. The call I'd waited for my entire life, arriving at precisely the moment my old life had just been stripped away. My heart hammered wildly as the phone vibrated urgently in my hand, the screen illuminating the dark, oppressive dining room with Ink Nation's logo. The timing couldn't have been more surreal. I stood frozen, caught between the crushing humiliation of disinheritance and the surreal, glowing promise of redemption literally vibrating in my palm. Take your call elsewhere, Dad snapped dismissively, breaking the silence. We've heard enough. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I met his gaze head-on, refusing to flinch or crumble beneath his cold stare. Gladly, I replied, voice calm yet biting. Trust me, the feeling's mutual. With every eye glued to my back, I walked swiftly through the grand archway, leaving the dining room behind me. The heavy silence fractured behind my exit, replaced by a low murmur of whispers as the guests realized they'd witnessed the Barrett family's very public fracture. But their gossip was irrelevant to me now. My future was literally calling. Stepping into the empty hallway, heart racing, I quickly answered, forcing my voice steady. Hello, this is Chelsea. Chelsea, came the enthusiastic reply, sharp and vibrant. It's Danica from Ink Nation. Sorry for the late call, but I couldn't wait to share the news. My pulse quickened. I'm listening. It's official, Danica announced excitedly. The board unanimously agreed. You're our featured artist for the nationwide collaboration. Your art will headline our campaign across every major city. Chelsea, this is big. Are you ready? Emotion caught in my throat, fierce pride and overwhelming relief crashing through me like a wave. This wasn't just a lifeline, it was vindication. More than ready, I said firmly, feeling the strength of my decision solidify with each word. Thank you, you won't regret this. Fantastic, Danica laughed warmly. We'll send the paperwork tomorrow, celebrate tonight, you've earned it. As the call ended, I leaned heavily against the ornate wallpaper, breath ragged as adrenaline surged. I closed my eyes briefly, savoring the moment of triumph. The universe had timed this to perfection, granting me this validation precisely when my family had tried hardest to crush me. Behind me, footsteps echoed on the marble floor. I turned to see Finn approaching, arms crossed defensively, eyes narrowed in suspicion. Who was that? The smirk I felt tugging at the corners of my lips was impossible to hide. Just a little call that changes everything, he scoffed dismissively. Another of your little art projects? It's more than that, Finn, I answered calmly, voice steady with newfound confidence. It's a nationwide collaboration. Barrett Tattoo Studio is going national, and I'm the featured artist. He blinked rapidly, mouth briefly opening in surprise before twisting into a sneer. You expect me to believe that? It doesn't matter if you do, I replied, unfazed. But if I were you, I'd be worried about your own failures instead of doubting my successes. His expression darkened. Don't pretend you know anything. Oh, but I do, I interrupted, stepping closer, my voice low yet firm. I've heard enough whispers tonight to know Barrett Furniture is bleeding cash, and you're the reason. Dad's blaming me, but we both know who's really responsible. Finn's jaw tightened, eyes darting nervously down the hall. You have no idea what you're talking about. I tilted my head slightly, studying him carefully. Don't I? Dad's been scrambling all night, desperately keeping up appearances. But I'm not the problem, Finn. You are. He stepped back, clearly rattled. Whatever you think you know, Chelsea, it doesn't matter. You're out. Dad made that clear. I smiled, feeling strangely calm despite everything. Dad's always been good at cutting people off, but now he needs help, and soon he'll realize I'm the only one who can offer it. Finn's eyes flickered uncertainly, his usual arrogance briefly faltering. He opened his mouth, then snapped it shut again, spinning on his heel without another word and retreating back toward the dining room. I watched him go, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and pride. Tonight had stripped away everything familiar, but instead of loss, I felt free. Powerful. For the first time, the Barretts would see me clearly, not as their black sheep, but as their only chance at salvation. And this time, when they came begging for my help, I'd set my own terms. The news of Ink Nation's deal spread like wildfire. By the time I stepped outside the Barrett estate, my phone was exploding with texts, emails, and voicemails from friends and loyal clients. The air outside felt lighter, clearer, like I was breathing properly for the first time in years. My entire world had shifted, turning humiliation into victory within a single heartbeat. But the night wasn't over yet. As I stood beside my car, still processing everything, my father emerged from the house, his usually composed features twisted with barely concealed desperation. Finn hovered behind him, scowling but silent. Chelsea, Dad began stiffly, hands shoved deep into his suit pockets, eyes flickering with discomfort. We need to talk. I raised an eyebrow, curiosity tempered with caution. I think we've said enough, don't you? He hesitated, jaw tightening. I could see it physically pained him to ask for help, especially after disowning me so publicly just moments before. Finn and I have had some discussions. It's true the company is struggling. Finn refused to meet my eyes, embarrassment radiating from him like heat. I crossed my arms unmoved. I'm aware, but how is that my problem now? Dad cleared his throat, shifting uneasily. Finn made some poor choices. We've accumulated substantial debt, over $200,000. Without immediate help, Barrett Furniture will close, permanently. A rush of emotions surged through me, anger, sadness, bitterness. My father's arrogance had finally collided with reality, and now, stripped of options, he stood before the daughter he'd so readily discarded, forced to swallow his pride. And you expect me to help? My voice was steady, betraying none of my inner turmoil. He exhaled sharply, clearly battling pride and necessity. You're the only one in this family currently capable of doing so. I took a slow breath, savoring the irony. So, just to be clear, you disinherit me, insult my life's work in front of everyone, and now you're asking me for money? Dad's expression darkened further, humiliation deepening lines etched by age and stress. Chelsea, please. The Barrett name is your legacy, too. I felt something break inside me. Not pain, but relief. Finally, the scales had balanced. My family needed me, truly needed me, and the power had shifted into my hand. You're right, Dad, I replied softly, stepping closer, voice firm but gentle. It is my legacy, and that means I get to set the terms. He tensed visibly, clearly uncomfortable with relinquishing control. Terms? I nodded slowly, eyes steady on his. If I'm going to save Barrett Furniture, I won't be a silent partner. I want a stake in the company. An ownership stake, and full respect. Finn's head snapped up in disbelief. Absolutely not. Dad silenced him with a sharp glance. You're serious? Very, I answered calmly, unwavering. I'm done being invisible. If you want my help, you'll recognize me as an equal. Publicly. Officially. No more dismissals, no more disrespect. You made this about legacy. Well, now it's mine to protect. A tense silence followed, punctuated only by the rustle of leaves in the night breeze. Dad stared at the ground, face rigid with indecision. pride wrestling practicality. Finn paced furiously behind him, seething quietly. Finally, Dad exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Fine, we'll discuss terms in detail later, you have my word." His voice was strained but sincere enough that I believed him. Yet the triumph wasn't in his agreement. It was in seeing him humbled, forced to acknowledge the daughter he'd dismissed so effortlessly for years. "Good," I said simply, feeling an unexpected peace settle deep within me. "Then we have a deal." Without another word, I turned and climbed into my car, leaving them standing there, shadows shrinking beneath the weight of reality. Driving away, windows open, the cool night air washed over me, erasing years of hurt and rejection. The Barretts had finally seen me, really seen me, and now they would finally respect me. Because the legacy I'd reclaim wasn't just the family name or a share of the furniture empire, it was something infinitely more powerful, my dignity, my value, my right to choose the life I wanted, free from their judgment. And that, more than anything, was the sweetest victory of all. Leaving the estate that night felt like shedding an old, suffocating skin. I drove slowly through quiet streets, my heart calmer than it had been in years. Despite everything, the insults, the rejection, the last-minute desperation from my family, I felt lighter, clearer. It was like stepping out of a shadow I'd worn my entire life, and finally into the sunlight. By the time I parked in front of Barrett Tattoo Studio, lights still softly glowing from inside, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't family drama or business emergencies, it was my closest friends and clients, gathered at the studio, waiting to celebrate. A genuine smile curved my lips, warmth flooding my chest. This was my real family, the people who'd stuck by me, supported me, and genuinely celebrated my successes. When I pushed through the door, applause erupted. Friendly faces grinned widely, a few raising champagne flutes, their eyes full of pride and genuine warmth. My heart swelled, relief mingling with joy. This gathering wasn't about obligation or appearances, it was pure support, unconditional love, and authentic celebration. "Welcome home, boss," called Heather, my longtime assistant and best friend. She rushed over, hugging me fiercely, whispering in my ear, "You deserve this." "Thank you," I whispered back, holding on tightly, savoring the genuine affection. Across the room, smiling gently, stood my closest clients, people whose life stories I'd inked permanently onto their bodies. Each tattoo represented courage, vulnerability, and strength. In them, I saw reflections of my own journey. This wasn't just business, it was deeply personal, powerful, and real. We laughed, toasted, and recounted stories late into the night. But as the evening quieted and everyone drifted toward the door, Heather lingered, concern edging her smile. "So, your family?" she asked carefully. "What happened tonight?" I sank onto the couch, exhaling slowly, processing the weight of everything. "They disowned me, officially, publicly," she gasped softly, eyes widening. "Chelsea, I'm so sorry." "No," I interrupted gently, smiling faintly. "It was painful but necessary. Honestly, it feels like freedom." Her expression softened, relief clear in her gaze. "And your dad?" I leaned back, closing my eyes briefly. "He asked for help. Barrett Furniture is collapsing, and they desperately need cash. After everything, I have the leverage. I told him I'd help. On my terms." Heather stared at me, pride slowly spreading across her face. "Chelsea Barrett, you absolute queen, you finally did it." I laughed softly, feeling the release of years of hidden tension. "I guess I did." Her expression shifted slightly, her voice growing serious. "But be careful. Your family, they won't change overnight. Make sure you protect yourself." I nodded, understanding perfectly. "Believe me, I'm not trusting blindly. This is about boundaries now, real boundaries. If they want a piece of my success, they'll respect me. If not, they're free to go." Heather smiled warmly, squeezing my hand. "Good, just promise me you won't let them hurt you again." "I promise," I said softly, and for the first time in my life I meant it completely. As Heather finally said goodnight, I sat alone in the quiet studio, surrounded by my art, my accomplishments, my true identity. I'd built this space piece by piece through sweat, tears, and stubborn belief. Each tattoo hung framed on the wall, stories of struggle and triumph, echoed my own journey. And tonight, I finally understood their deeper meaning. Each scar I inked into beauty was also mine, proof of the power hidden inside me, the strength to rise from invisibility to clarity. My phone lit up briefly, one more message from Dad. "Chelsea, let's meet tomorrow to discuss your terms." I exhaled slowly, feeling no fear or anxiety, only calm certainty. Tomorrow, the family that had overlooked and undervalued me would finally have to see me clearly, respect me fully, and accept me on my own terms. My success had opened the door, but my dignity would ensure it stayed open. Smiling softly, I replied, "Tomorrow works, and remember, my terms, my rules." Setting down the phone, I closed my eyes and took a deep, peaceful breath. For the first time, the future didn't feel uncertain or frightening, it felt exactly right. I'd fought for my worth, and now it was time to truly own it. The next morning, I woke to a cascade of sunlight flooding my bedroom, brighter than it had ever seemed. Usually after family dinners, I'd wake up drained, burdened by the lingering pain of their rejection. But today was different. I felt grounded, strong, and certain of myself in a way I'd never felt before. I brewed coffee and watched steam curl softly upward, savoring the quiet. Moments later, the doorbell rang, breaking my solitude. Curious, I opened the door to find Heather and three of my closest clients, Kayla, Jensen, and Tilly, smiling warmly and holding bags of pastries and balloons that read, "Congratulations!" "We figured you'd need extra fuel for today," Heather said brightly, stepping in to hug me. "You didn't have to," I began, touched by their kindness. "Oh, we absolutely did," Kayla interrupted, setting down a box of donuts. "After what you've been through, you deserve a real celebration." We crowded around my tiny kitchen table, laughter and chatter filling the air as they asked for details about last night's drama. I recounted everything. My father's harsh rejection, Finn's arrogance, the painful moment I was publicly disowned, and finally the thrilling rush of the Ink Nation call. They listened intently, outrage and pride shifting across their faces, fully invested in my story. "Honestly, Chelsea," Tilly said, shaking her head, "you should have walked out years ago. You're too talented, too strong to waste energy on people who don't see your worth." Jensen nodded in agreement, sipping his coffee thoughtfully. "Family isn't always about blood, it's about who stands by you when everything falls apart." Heather nudged me gently. "Exactly. We're your family, Chelsea, always have been." Their words sank deep, warming me from the inside. In contrast to last night's hostile dinner, this moment felt effortless, genuine. These were people who didn't measure my value by titles, money, or appearances. They knew me, flaws, strengths, dreams, and stood by me through it all. A sudden pang of sadness briefly pierced the joy. I just wish my parents could see me this way, even once, see me clearly. Kayla reached across, squeezing my hand gently. "Maybe someday they will. But either way, it doesn't change who you are or what you've accomplished." The conversation flowed seamlessly, moving from laughter to deeper reflections. Heather, eyes sparkling mischievously, leaned forward conspiratorially. "So, today's meeting with your dad, ready to finally lay down the law?" I smiled slightly, nerves fluttering faintly beneath my calm exterior. "Absolutely. He's used to calling the shots, but not anymore." "Good," Jensen said firmly. "You've earned every bit of respect you're asking for." As they eventually drifted out, offering final hugs and words of encouragement, I felt energized. Their support solidified my resolve, reinforcing the boundaries I knew I had to set. Today wasn't just about saving a family business, it was about redefining relationships, reclaiming my space, and demanding respect as a non-negotiable condition. I changed into a tailored blazer, styled my hair carefully, and applied minimal makeup. Professional, confident, no nonsense. Looking into the mirror, I saw a woman who knew her worth. Gone was the insecure girl who once feared judgment. In her place stood someone ready to demand recognition and respect on her own terms. My phone buzzed again, signaling Dad's confirmation of our afternoon meeting. Rather than dread or anxiety, I felt powerful anticipation. For years, my family had set the boundaries, defined my identity, and minimized my dreams. Today, I'd finally reversed the roles, establishing my own boundaries clearly and permanently. Taking a slow, steady breath, I texted him back. "I'll be there, ready to talk terms." Hitting send, I smiled faintly, feeling fully in control for the first time. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: I was no longer the overlooked daughter silently hoping for acceptance. I was Chelsea Barrett, respected tattoo artist, successful businesswoman, and proud architect of my own life. My true family had reminded me of something crucial. Respect wasn't granted, it was earned and fiercely defended. And today, I demand nothing less than what I rightfully deserved. My father chose neutral ground, a quiet cafe downtown, for our afternoon meeting. I arrived early, selecting a booth by the window. My pulse steady yet firm, like the heartbeat of someone prepared for battle. This wasn't about anger or revenge, it was about clarity, respect, and boundaries that had long needed establishing. Dad walked in precisely on time, his familiar posture rigid with practiced confidence. He wore his usual polished attire, a tailored suit, immaculate and intimidating, but beneath it I noticed something unfamiliar: vulnerability. He sat across from me, carefully avoiding my eyes at first, nervously shifting a folder of papers across the table. "Chelsea," he began stiffly, voice controlled yet strained. "Thank you for meeting me." "You're welcome," I replied, calmly holding his gaze until he met mine. "But let's skip the formalities. We both know why we're here." He exhaled slowly, reluctantly setting aside pride. "I'll be direct then. Barrett Furniture is on the brink. Without immediate capital, we'll close in a matter of weeks." I nodded slightly, unsurprised. "How much exactly?" He hesitated briefly, clearly uncomfortable admitting failure. 230,000. It'll stabilize things until we restructure." I absorbed the number, taking a careful breath. "And why exactly should I help you after everything that's happened?" His eyes flickered away, jaw tight. "Because despite everything, Barrett Furniture is your legacy too." My voice hardened slightly. "A legacy I've never been allowed to claim." His expression softened briefly, something regretful flickering beneath the surface. "Chelsea, I admit I underestimated you. Your strength, your talents. I was wrong to dismiss your passion, to disinherit you. It was short-sighted and unfair." His apology startled me, not because I hadn't earned it, but because I never expected to hear those words from him. Still, this was about action, not words. "Thank you for acknowledging that," I replied evenly, careful to maintain composure. "But understand, this isn't about forgiveness. It's about respect and clear boundaries. If I help, I'm not handing you money blindly. I'll become an equal partner, full ownership stake, full say in decisions, no more sidelining me." He leaned back, visibly struggling against old habits of control. "You're asking for a great deal, Chelsea." "No," I corrected firmly, voice unwavering. "I'm simply asking for what I've always deserved." He exhaled again, hands tense on the table. Finally, after a heavy silence, he nodded. "Agreed. You'll have an ownership stake, equal authority. We'll announce publicly that you're returning to the company, respected and recognized fully." I held his gaze, ensuring sincerity. "And Finn, how will he handle this?" He hesitated briefly, frowning. "Finn made critical mistakes. He'll remain in the company but not in leadership. You're right, this situation requires accountability." Something loosened inside my chest. Relief, vindication, cautious optimism. My terms had been clear and unwavering, and finally they were accepted. Yet I needed to establish one more boundary before moving forward. "One more condition," I added firmly. "If we're going to work together, I need assurance that personal judgments about my career, my choices, and my passion end now. Permanently." Dad studied me quietly, expression unreadable at first, then he slowly nodded, a small but genuine acknowledgement. "Fair enough. I'll respect that." "Good," I said calmly, extending a hand across the table. He hesitated for only a heartbeat before shaking it firmly, finally equally. We sat briefly in silence, a strange calm settling between us. Years of tension, resentment, and misunderstanding slowly released, replaced by cautious respect and mutual acknowledgement. It was far from perfect. Years of wounds wouldn't heal overnight, but it was a start. As Dad left, promising paperwork and public announcements soon, I remained at the table, letting the moment sink in. My phone buzzed, a supportive message from Heather. "How did it go?" I smiled faintly, quickly typing a reply. Better than expected, boundaries set, respect demanded, and finally received. Outside, people moved through their days, oblivious to the quiet victory unfolding in my life. But for me, this simple cafe had become a fortress, a place where I finally reclaimed my dignity, asserted my value, and established clear lines that would protect me from future harm. I stood, ready to step into whatever came next, fully prepared and unafraid. Barrett Furniture might be my heritage, but Barrett Tattoo Studio was my heart, my soul, my true legacy. Today, I had successfully claimed both, without compromise. My boundaries had finally become walls of strength, no longer barriers of isolation, and I was ready to defend them fiercely. Within days, our agreement became official. Dad kept his word. public announcements appeared across local news, declaring my return to Barrett Furniture as co-owner, fully acknowledging my equal stake and highlighting my artistic success. Watching my family publicly embrace what they'd once scorned felt surreal, yet deeply satisfying. At Barrett Tattoo Studio, business flourished as never before. Ink Nation's campaign launched nationwide, and my designs appeared on billboards, magazines, and social media platforms across the country. New clients streamed in, eager for the chance to wear my art, stories of transformation, resilience, and strength etched permanently onto their skin. Despite my growing workload, I carefully divided my attention between both businesses, determined to reshape Barrett Furniture into something authentic and meaningful. Meetings with my father were initially awkward but became steadily easier as boundaries remained firmly intact. Finn, humbled by his past failures, gradually accepted his reduced role, cautiously supportive of the new direction I was bringing to the family legacy. The true transformation began when I introduced a new line of handcrafted furniture. Pieces designed collaboratively with local artists, reflecting the deep emotional resonance my tattoo work had always held. Each piece told a story, symbolizing renewal, courage, and personal growth. Barrett Furniture slowly evolved from cold luxury into a brand people genuinely connected with, appreciated for its authenticity and integrity. And soon, I used my financial independence to create something even more personal. A foundation supporting young artists pursuing unconventional paths, offering grants and mentorships I desperately needed myself. I named it the Barrett Phoenix Foundation, honoring the tattoo of rebirth I wore proudly on my shoulders. The evening of our first public charity event, I stood backstage, heart pounding as I prepared to speak. The auditorium filled with artists, community leaders, even my family, waiting quietly. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle softly around me. Walking confidently onto the stage, I faced the crowd, microphone steady in my hand. "I'm Chelsea Barrett," I began clearly, voice strong yet gentle. "Most of you know my story. For years, I lived in the shadows of expectations, overlooked and undervalued, but art gave me the strength to rewrite my narrative." My eyes briefly found my parents in the crowd. Dad sat quietly attentive, Mom smiled softly, proud but reserved. Even Finn nodded respectfully, a gesture I appreciated deeply. I created the Barrett Phoenix Foundation because every artist deserves a chance to rise, to reclaim their identity, and to find their voice. Your worth isn't defined by money or family expectations, it's defined by your courage to choose authenticity, even when it's difficult. Applause erupted warmly, filling the room with genuine support. My heart swelled, gratitude mingling with pride as I absorbed the powerful moment. I had reclaimed my name, reshaped my legacy, and chosen to uplift others along the way. Afterward, Dad approached quietly backstage, expression carefully composed. "Chelsea," he began, voice gentle. "I underestimated you. I never thought the Barrett name could mean something real. Something like this." I smiled faintly, touched by his sincerity. "Thank you, Dad, that means more than you know." He hesitated briefly, meeting my eyes directly. "I know we've hurt you, deeply. But I'm proud of you, proud of who you've become, and what you're creating. Barrett Furniture needed you far more than you ever needed it." Emotion caught in my throat, tears pricking at my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered again, more softly, feeling old wounds finally beginning to close. Heather appeared nearby, smiling gently as she watched our exchange. Dad squeezed my shoulder lightly, a gesture of genuine respect, before stepping away, giving us space. "You did it," Heather whispered proudly, slipping an arm around my shoulders. "No," I corrected softly, heart full. "We did it." Together we watched the crowd linger, artists connecting, conversations humming with energy and excitement. The Barrett name, once cold and distant, had transformed tonight into something vibrant, honest, and real, something truly worth reclaiming. This was my legacy, rewritten by courage, perseverance, and authenticity. And now, finally, I was ready to embrace it fully. Late that evening, after everyone had left and the lights dimmed, I lingered quietly in the empty auditorium, absorbing the silence. Chairs were scattered, event programs littered the floor, yet the space still held the echo of applause, conversations, and genuine connections. Standing alone, I finally allowed myself a deep, cathartic breath. The path here had been long, filled with bruising disappointments, harsh judgments, and a family whose respect always felt painfully out of reach. But tonight, standing amidst the aftermath of my own triumph, I realized something profoundly simple. My worth had never depended on my family's approval, their legacy, or their name. It had always been mine to define, mine to claim. I sank gently into one of the empty chairs, letting that truth settle deeply within me. In the darkness, memories replayed quietly, moments of loneliness, rejection, self-doubt. Yet beneath those shadows now glowed a soft, unwavering pride. I'd survived, I'd risen, and I'd reshaped my narrative completely on my own terms. Quiet footsteps interrupted my reflection. Turning, I saw Heather stepping softly toward me, concern shading her eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly, slipping into the chair beside me. "Yes," I answered softly, feeling peace spread warmly inside me. "Everything's exactly as it should be." Heather studied me thoughtfully, sensing my emotional shift. "You've changed, Chelsea. Not just tonight but over the years, stronger, clearer. You really found yourself." I nodded slowly, letting her words resonate deeply. I had no choice. The only alternative was letting others define me, and I couldn't live like that anymore. She squeezed my hand gently, warmth radiating between us. "Well, whatever happens next, just know I'm proud of you, we all are." Tears welled softly, relief mingling with gratitude. "Thank you, honestly, I wouldn't be here without you, without all of you." Heather smiled softly, nodding. "Chosen family, it's the best kind." We sat quietly, breathing in the quiet peace of the moment. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, oblivious to the transformation happening inside me. But I felt different now, complete, whole, utterly myself. No longer the Barrett's invisible daughter or rebellious black sheep. Simply Chelsea, artist, businesswoman, fully validated from within. Eventually Heather stood, squeezing my shoulder gently. "Ready to go?" I nodded slowly, standing beside her, feeling the comfort of true friendship beside me. Together we walked toward the exit, leaving the past behind with every step. Stepping into the cool night air, I glanced upward, stars shimmering gently. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, continued growth, and likely more family complexities. But tonight, beneath that endless sky, I finally felt at peace. For the first time, my worth required no external validation. I'd reclaimed my identity completely, no longer waiting on someone else's approval or acceptance. My self-worth had always belonged to me, waiting patiently to be embraced. And tonight, finally I had. With quiet strength I whispered softly to myself, "You made it, Chelsea. Welcome home." Have you ever felt invisible within your own family, struggled to claim your worth, or fought tirelessly for respect, only to find validation from within yourself? My journey taught me something powerful. The truest, deepest validation comes not from others, not even from those closest to you, but from the strength you build when you dare to stand authentically in your truth. I shared my story openly because I know many of you watching right now have faced similar battles, against family expectations, societal pressures, or your own self-doubt. Maybe you're at the start of that journey, or perhaps you've already overcome your own obstacles. Wherever you are, I'd love to hear from you. Drop your story in the comments below. Your struggles, your triumphs, your moments of reclaiming your power. Let's inspire and support each other, building a community rooted in authenticity and courage. If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success on their own terms. Remember this above all else. Your worth is never defined by others' perceptions. It's a gift you give yourself, the moment you choose authenticity over acceptance. Thank you for being here, for sharing this space, and for having the courage to reclaim your story. You're stronger than you realize. Own it, embrace it, share it, ask, reflect, share.